CCR by Brandon Morales. How does my product use or challenge conventions, and how does it represent social groups or issues? For so when I was first designing Code Red, I really wanted to lean into the classic medical look everyone recognizes. I used a bold red and white retro outline and a high contrast color because that's what you see in hospitals. It feels urgent and professional. I kept a clean grid layout for the table of contents, which is pretty standard for educational magazines. But I also wanted to break the rules a bit. Usually, medical stuff is super cold and doctory, but I chose to use more emotional copy. Like in my palpitation article, I called it the language of touch. Instead of just some boring clinical definition, it makes the student experience feel more like a personal journey. In terms of social representation, I really focus on the reality of being a medical student. People usually think of doctors as these perfect, rich heroes, but I wanted to show the issues we actually deal with, like high stress and irregular hours, mentioned in my lifestyle section. I even included a bit about phlebotomy anxiety because let's be real, everyone is terrifying of messing up their first blood draw. By using close up photography of the equipment and the lab, I'm trying to represent students as real, vulnerable people who are just trying to learn, rather than experts who already have it all figured out. How does my product engage with audiences, and how would it be distributed as a real media text? To get people to actually stop and look at my magazine, I went for a real active visual style. My main hook on the cover is where concern is most important, and I paired that with a heartbeat graphic to to grab anyone who's into healthcare right away. I also used direct address in the writing. Instead of just talking at the reader, I said things like, by taking action, you are one step closer. It makes the magazine feel more like a mentor or a friend giving advice. I also made sure to use those blue image frames to keep things organized. So it's easy for a busy student to skim through without getting a headache. For distribution, if this was a real media text, I've had it everywhere students are. Physically, I have it in the med schools, lounges, libraries, and those hospital cafeterias where everyone is grabbing coffee. But since we're all on our phones now, a digital version is a must, maybe as an e-sync on a university portal. I'd also push it on social media using the med talk aesthetic. The bold red and blue house style I created would look really good on an Instagram grid. And I'd use that to tease the articles and get paid and people to click through the full issues. How did my production skills develop throughout this project? Honestly, my skills grew a ton during this project. At the very beginning, I had no idea how to handle layout or compensation. My first drafts were just a mess of text everywhere. But I eventually learned that the less is more rule and started using negative space to let the design breathe. If you look at my palpitation spread, you can see how I learned to wrap text and use subheadings to make it way easier to read. It actually flows like a real magazine now. My color sense got way better too. I used to just pick fonts that look cool, but I learned that you need a hierarchy. I started using bold fonts for the headlines so they stand out, and cleaner fonts for the body text so people could actually read the articles. Even my photography improved. I went from just taking random snapshots to thinking about the lighting and the angles. I learned how to make a simple wheelchair or a hospital bed look like a professional editorial photo just by how I framed it. How did I integrate technology, software, hardware, and online in this project? Technology was basically the backbone of this whole project. For hardware, I mostly used my phone's camera to get those high-res shots of the lab and the gear. It was actually great for getting those micro shots of the medical machines. I did all the heavy lifting on my laptop, which was my main workstation for the entire process. For the software side, I did almost all of the design work in Canva. I got really into the specific tools they have, like using transparency to fade out icons in the background so they didn't distract from the text. I also used the layering tool to print my code red title over those blue geometrical shapes on the cover to give it some more depth. Online, I spent a lot of time on Pinterest and medical blogs just for research and mood boarding. I wanted to see how real medical journals look so I could copy that vibe. I also used Google Docs to write all my articles first. It was way easier to fix my typos there before moving on to the text into my layout. The whole digital workflow really saved me and kept the project looking consistent from the first page to the last. This is my CCR, and thank you.